Hey, real quick, just before the video starts, it might seem a little weird and jarring and feel like it was supposed to be just part of the last video. That's because it is. Part one of this and what you're about to watch right now were actually recorded and edited and all intended to be just one really long video. However, my computer sucks and would crash every time I tried to export it from Adobe. So, yes. With that being said, I still hope you enjoy this. I'm sorry if it seems like a little weird because of that, but I still wanted to get it out and I did not want to re-record the entire thing. So I hope you enjoy and tell me what you think.
Now we're going to go ahead and start tier 2, which starts with Water Bomber and the Scuba Diver. If you don't know what a water bomber is, like I didn't know what it was, when you have large fires like the brush fires in Australia or forest fires out in California, you know, those massive like nature fires that firefighters will use large tanks of water to basically carpet bomb the fire. Yeah, those giant tanks that they use to carpet bomb, that's a water bomb. So the legend goes that there is a massive fire in insert area where large fires happen. And a water bomb is filled via enter body of water near where the fire is happening. And during the filming process, they accidentally suck up a scuba diver who would then be dropped into the inferno only to be found after the fire, stuck in a tree and like charred to bits. This story has been told for a while. There's actually no evidence of this happening, and it's my understanding that they just use like a hose that is too small for like a human to be sucked through when they do this. So I don't think it's real. The Babysitter the Man Upstairs is a classic tale similar to the clown statue one. You know, the story goes that a young woman is babysitting one night, and after she puts the kids to bed while she's watching TV, there's a call. A mysterious man on the other line tells her to check on the kids. Terrified after multiple calls from this man, she eventually calls the police, who trace the call and tell her to leave. Once the police arrive, they say the calls were coming from inside the house and the strange man killed the kids. Ooh, spooky. It's one of those ghost fire stories that were told and turned into a million movies. Bloody Mary is a classic urban legend told here in the United States, and I imagine other English-speaking countries. I would be shocked if like this wasn't popular in Canada and England also. However, but the story goes, if you go into a bathroom with the lights off, stare into the mirror and say Bloody Mary 3 times, she will appear behind you and kill you. If this is somehow the first time you've ever heard of Bloody Mary, this isn't a story told at like campfires or anything. This is more of a game / prank, kids pulling each other at sleepovers. You know, everyone goes in one at a time or all at once to see who's brave enough to summon Bloody Mary. Now, the Expressionless is a classic creepypasta that's pretty short, so I'll just go ahead and read it for you. In June 1972, a woman appeared in Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, California, in nothing but a white, blood-covered gown. Now, this in itself should not be too surprising, as people often have accidents nearby and come to the nearest hospital for medical attention. But there were 2 things that caused people who saw her to vomit and flee in terror. The first being that she wasn't exactly human. She resembled something close to a mannequin, but had the dexterity and fluidity of a normal human being. Her face was as flawless as a mannequin, devoid of eyebrows and smeared in makeup. There was a kitten clamped in her jaws so unnaturally tight that no teeth could be seen, and the blood was still pouring over her gown and onto the floor. She then pulled it out of her mouth and tossed it aside and collapsed. From the moment she stepped through the entrance to when she was taken to a hospital room and cleaned up before being prepped for sedation, she was completely calm, expressionless, and motionless. The doctors thought it was best to restrain her until the authorities could arrive, and she did not protest. They were unable to get any kind of response from her, and most staff members felt too uncomfortable to look directly at her for more than a few seconds. But the second the staff tried to sedate her, she fought back with extreme force. 2 members of the staff had to hold her down as her body rose up on the bed with the same blank expression. She turned her emotionless eyes towards the male doctor and did something unusual. She smiled. As she did, the female doctor screamed and let go out of shock. In the woman's mouth were not human teeth, but long, sharp spikes. Too long for her mouth to close fully without causing any damage. The male doctor stared back at her for a moment before asking, "What in the hell are you?" She cracked her neck down to her shoulders to observe him, still smiling. As he heard them approach, she darted forward, sinking her teeth into the front of his throat, ripping out his jugular and letting him fall to the floor, gasping for air as he choked on his own blood. She stood up and leaned over him, her face coming dangerously close to his as the life faded from his eyes. She leaned closer and whispered in his ear, "I am God." The doctor's eyes filled with fear as he watched her calmly walk away to greet the security men. His last ever sight would be watching her feast on them one by one. The female doctor who survived the incident named her the Expressionless. There was never a sight of her again. And that's the story of the Expressionless. Hippo Eats Dwarf is a funny hoax that originates from Las Vegas. It's a fake news story that was circulated in the local paper that claimed a circus dwarf named Odd bounced sideways off a trampoline and only to be eaten by a yawning hippo. And that's it. I don't know, the mental image of that is just kind of funny to me. The Bambino Curse is a baseball curse said to fall on the Boston Red Sox. The legend goes that after the Sox sold Babe Ruth, who was commonly known as the Bambino, to the Yankees, they would go on an 86-year championship drought. And this was a big deal at the time because the Sox were considered the best team in the league as they had won 5 of the first 15 World Series games. After Babe was sold, they would go on a drought, and the Yankees, who were considered trash at the time, would go on to play in 39 World Series games and won 26 of them. And if you don't like sports ball like me, you probably didn't know that this curse was the cause of the Yankee-Red Sox rivalry, but it is. However, the curse was officially broken with the Sox would win the World Series in 2004 against none other than the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, some of the events believed to have ended the curse include a kid who happened to live on a farm that Babe Ruth used to own get hit in the face with a foul ball by a Red Sox player, and Jimmy Buffett put on a concert in Fenway Park. The Kelly Hopkinsville encounter was an alien encounter that happened in Kentucky where local farmers would claim they had gotten into a shootout with aliens. The farmers said they saw a ship crash and little gray aliens came out, which resulted in a 4-hour standoff and fight between the two groups. When police came in and investigated, all they found were bullet holes, making it look like the farmers just shot up the property. Now look, I'm from Kentucky, and I wholeheartedly believe that this happened because Kentucky people are weird and do weird shit like this all the time. At the very least, if it didn't actually happen, they all believe that it happened. And like they just saw something. In the Air Tonight is a song by Phil Collins. You might know it. It's got like the iconic drums in it. But if you actually listen to the lyrics of it and not just the really sick beat, it's actually kind of dark. Honestly, Eminem's song Stand kind of summarizes it perfectly. About that guy who could have saved another guy from drowning but didn't. Phil saw it all and at a show he found him. Yeah, that. The lyrics themselves tell the story of how Phil Collins witnessed someone drowning but was too far to help. However, he also saw that there was another guy that could have helped him but just kind of sat there and watched. And the legend is, well, how true is the story? Did Phil see it all and eventually recognize him at a concert and call him out? Who knows? Phil Collins has gone on to say that he doesn't even know what the song is about and wrote it out of anger while he was going through a divorce. I think that's a cover-up for it. I don't think Phil Collins actually saw someone drown like that. But I think he does acknowledge the fact that like that is a conspiracy and knows that if he just kind of feeds into like the validity of it, it's going to make the song more popular, which obviously it's an iconic song. Everyone knows In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. Lighthouse and Navy Vessel is actually a joke, not a legend, but it's also kind of funny, and it goes something like this. A naval warship is sailing on patrol when they realize they're on course to crash into another ship. The captain of the naval ship gets on the radio and says, "You're on course to crash into us. We advise you adjust course to prevent hitting us." To which the other ship responds, "No, you move." The captain gets mad at this and responds, "I am the commanding officer of a U.S. naval warship. You will get out of my way." And the other ship responds, "I'm a lighthouse, bud." There's no proof this ever happened, but it's still kind of funny. The Ghost P-40 is a short story that I can just kind of quickly summarize. A year after the attack on Pearl Harbor, a plane was picked up on radar by U.S. forces and the plane was headed towards Pearl Harbor. Fearing it was another Japanese attack, planes were scrambled to intercept. However, what they found wasn't a Japanese Zero, but a U.S. P-40 that had no landing gear and had been shot to hell. The pilot of the P-40 was then said to look at his interceptors, smile, then just kind of slump over. The plane would take a nosedive and crash into the ground, and upon searching the crash site, there was no sign of the pilot or any kind of markings on the plane. All that could be determined was that the plane flew from Mindanao Island, which was like 1,000 miles away. Now there's various interpretations. It might have just been a ghost of a pilot that was killed on Pearl Harbor. You know, the guy actually managed to like basically rebuild a plane and fly there, but with no landing gear. I don't know. There's a few different versions of the story. Some say this actually happened in China, not Pearl Harbor. It really all depends on what source you read. Skeleton in a Tree is a legend from Ohio which claims the remains of Captain Roger Vanderburg, a casualty of the Battle of Fort Recovery in 1791, were found in a skeleton in a tree in Miami County, Ohio. And the question comes if he tried to hide in the tree or was put in there. And I couldn't find anything else about this tale. It's pretty cut and dry. A skeleton was found in a tree. No one knows how it got there. The spider bite is an urban legend originating from England and tells the story of a young woman from a colder climate, typically England, you know, somewhere like New York, Minnesota, take your pick on where, somewhere that's cold. Being tired of the cold, this woman goes on vacation to a tropical place like Mexico or Florida. Usually the story is told that she goes to Mexico. And while on vacation, she's bitten on the cheek by a spider. This bite becomes a boil, so she goes to see a doctor to get it lanced. Once the doctor cuts into the boil, a bunch of baby spiders come out, proving that the spider had laid eggs in the bite. In case you're scared of spiders and this freaked you out too much, it's not physically possible. Spiders don't lay eggs through bites. And this story is typically told as a way of like, kind of like a criticism of how, you know, people from nicer or like colder climates, more, I guess I could say modern first world places, you know, somewhere like London or New York, that think they're better than everyone because they live in London or New York, will look down on more tropical, you know, Mexico, South American countries, even Florida, because they're not London or New York. Little green men are the most stereotypical form of alien. They're Martians. They're the little green alien guys. I've actually got one on my balcony. His name is Marvin. I couldn't find anything on rods unless they're like the squiggly lines you see in your eye sometime. If you know what rods are in terms of like a mythical creature, let me know. So Bodies of Sydney Bridge is the legend that when the Sydney Bridge was built in Australia, several workers fell into some of the concrete pours and were buried in the bridge. While I couldn't find anything proving this happened on this project specifically, similar cases have happened during the construction of things like the Great Wall of China, which was proven to be true. And a similar legend exists for the Hoover Dam, but I don't know if that's been proven or not, and we're also going to talk about that one later on. So, did you ever chew gum as a kid? Did your parents tell you not to swallow it because it sit in your stomach for 7 years? If not, your parents were better than most, because a lot of kids, including myself, were told that, yeah, don't swallow gum because it'll clog up your insides, supposedly. So organ theft is a real issue that I'm sure at least 10 people have been affected by, but the legend is mostly stories of people being taken after usually something like a party or having an organ or two harvested, usually kidneys, by someone they recently met. This scene from Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back is actually a really good example of that legend.
I think they passed out.
Great. What do we do with them now?
Let's cut out their kidneys and sell to the black market and leave them in a seedy motel bathtub life.
So Dog Boy is a strange one, and I don't know if I found the right thing, but what I did find was a story about a little shit from Arkansas named Gerald Floyd Bettis. Now, Gerald was an obnoxious little shit that as a kid would adopt cats and dogs, which is how he got his nickname Dog Boy. But he wasn't adopting them to love them, he would torture them. Eventually this sadism shifted to his parents, who he even locked in the attic, and at some point threw his father out a window. His father would die in the house, and Gerald would eventually be arrested for drug possession. His mom died after the house went, after his mom died, the house went to a niece who sold it, and the next owner was a trucker who claimed there was a lot of paranormal activity. Most believe that the paranormal activity in the house over the years was Gerald's father. MothMan is my favorite cryptid. He is awesome and misunderstood by society. He's a giant moth-like creature that was first spotted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in late 1966 by a few couples that were out taking a drive. And then after the story broke in the local paper, there were several sightings in the area of him over the next year. That was until December 15th, 1967, when the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant collapsed. Many in the area accused MothMan of it because he wasn't seen in the area again after that collapsing. Now, people went on to claim that they spotted him in Pripyat before the Chernobyl disaster, New York before 9/11, Fukushima, Japan in 2011 just before the tsunami and nuclear reactor incident, and his last known sighting was back in 2016, way back in his home county of Mason County, West Virginia. Most people have assessed that MothMan is a harbinger of doom and he causes a lot of chaos, but I have a different theory. I think MothMan shows up to warn us, but he's also just socially awkward and doesn't know how to initiate conversation. He probably also knows that he's weird looking and would scare us if he just came out. And I would be shocked if he didn't know at this point that he's a bit of a celebrity, so that just makes his social anxiety even worse. So if you see MothMan, be nice to him because he's probably there to help you. And he's just a little awkward. You gotta initiate the conversation and just, be polite, be kind to the MothMan. He wants to help you. The Alice killings is the legend of a serial killer in Japan, and his spree was from 1999 to 2000. All these murders had never been solved. The police investigating the murders didn't really see a connection in any of them until it was noticed that they all had a playing card on them with the word Alice written on them. This is a really popular legend in Japan, but like I said, it's a legend. It's not true. Well, kind of. There was a very similar killer named Alfred Galán who did exist and was on a spree in Spain. He had killed 6 people and wounded 3 others back in 2003, but eventually turned himself into the police. Le Loyon, also known as the Phantom of Malls, was a strange, human-like creature spotted outside the village of Malls in Switzerland. Le Loyon was first spotted back in the early 2000s and described as a 6-foot-tall humanoid wearing a gas mask, boiler suit, and cloak. Le Loyon wasn't an evil being. The locals thought he was creepy and it kept people out of the woods and police wanted to talk to him, but just to reassure the people that Le Loyon wasn't a bad thing. They had no reason to think he was malevolent in any sense of the word. In fact, there's one report of a woman who claimed to have ran into Le Loyon out in the woods while he was picking flowers, and Le Loyon was startled by the woman, not the woman startled by him. And then in 2013, a Swiss newspaper posted the first and only known image of Le Loyon, and he was not happy about it. Shortly after the article was published, his gas mask and cloak were found along with a note titled Death Certificate and Testament of the Phantom of Malls. Now, the note states that the walks in the wood were Le Loyon's way to reconnect with nature and deal with how society works and how humans live. He claimed that people are very narrow-minded and wrong to assume Le Loyon was evil because he wasn't cute like a garden gnome. Nature was very precious, and if he had stayed, it would have attracted cryptid hunters that would destroy the land that he held so dear. And there's been no sign of Le Loyon since. Many took this note to be a suicide note, others took it as the guy that would just walk around in the woods dressed like this was not going to do it anymore because he didn't want, Bigfoot conspirators to go and destroy the land and turn him into a tourist attraction basically. And it sucks because this was not a cryptid. This is not like a humanoid monster or big spooky thing. This was just an eccentric dude who liked to dress up weirdly and walk in the woods. And it was his therapy. And fucking tabloid clickbait journalists ruined this guy's therapy, which sucks because he wasn't doing anything wrong. And I'm upset for him. Candyman is a legend similar to Bloody Mary. Kind of. It was created by Clive Barker. Candyman is a ghost of a black man that was murdered for being part of an interracial couple. And just like Bloody Mary, you stare into a mirror, say his name 5 times, and then if you do, he will haunt you. But he has a hook and uses bees somehow. A big part of his thing is he thrives off of, keeping his legend alive. And you can only actually see or summon him if you truly believe in him. So if you don't think he's real and you just go and say his name in front of a mirror 5 times, nothing's gonna happen. But if you truly believe, that's when he will attack you. Did you ever go to a pool as a kid? Were you told not to pee in the pool because it was rude and disgusting, but you were a little snot, you still did it? Because of your disgusting habits of peeing in the pool, did your parents tell you about a new chemical they were adding to pools that would turn pee purple so everyone knows that you pee in the pool? If so, you're a victim of the urine indicator dye tale, and I bet you tested it still, you disgusting little creature. Gloria Ramirez, also known as the Toxic Lady, was a woman who died in Riverside, California on February 19th, 1994. Her death was odd, as after doctors tried to defibrillate her, many became sick and fainted and even had to be hospitalized. It was found that Gloria was diagnosed with cervical cancer and self-medicated with dimethyl sulfoxide, and when the doctors went to defib her, the sulfoxide turned into dimethyl sulfate, which is a poisonous toxin in the air. There was a lot of speculation on why these doctors were sick, and no one knew how to respond right away. They even quarantined the hospital due to it, but it turned out this was one of those not as bad as it seems issues, and I'm pretty sure everyone that was exposed to the dimethyl sulfate survived. 8 Feet Tall is a relatively new Japanese ghost story being traced back to 2008. Miss 8 Feet Tall is an 8-foot-tall ghost of a woman said to be in a white dress and wide-brim hat and constantly says "Poe." It's one of those legends that vary based on the stories you read, but most agree she stalks and preys on children until eventually abducting and killing them. Like I said, this is a newer tale. Its origins can be traced to a creepypasta posted on 2chan back in 2008. And I'm pretty sure I just described Lady Demasutra, or whatever the hell the tall goth mommy from Resident Evil Village. That is 8 Feet Tall. The cursed Japanese Kleenex commercial is a classic scary video that you can find right here on YouTube. The ad is a Japanese commercial from 1996 for tissues. That's, well, kind of weird. The ad itself is just a woman with a baby dressed up as a little red devil, and yeah, it's a little weird and downright creepy. The song in the commercial does not help. People began complaining about the ad when it aired, and naturally urban legends sort of formed to begin around it. Legends include everything from, the people that were involved with the production died, the child died, the actress in the ad, Kikyo Matsuzaka, died violently. She went insane, gave birth to a demon. Take your pick on which one it was. Something bad happened to her. There's even supposedly a more demonic version of the ad that was only played at midnight, and that was the one that would curse you. Obviously all of this is fake. It's not real. Kleenex is not some evil, benevolent, demon worshiper curse people. At least God, I hope they're not. The Ratman of Southend is an English legend that has two main versions of it. One being that an old homeless man who took shelter in a tunnel one night was beaten by teens and died from his injuries and exposure, with his body being eaten by rats before it was found. Shortly after his death, people claimed to hear strange noises in the tunnel that the man died in, and his ghost has been dubbed the Ratman of Southend. The other version is a bit more interesting. It's a schoolyard tale about how the mayor is an adulterer, and as punishment his baby mama gave birth to a weird rat creature, and instead of killing it like a normal person, the mayor would keep it in a crypt. But once the rat boy got too big, he had an underpass built with a secret chamber in it for the Ratman to live in, and he now just kind of vibes out in the tunnel and eats people. I don't know, the second one just sounds cooler to me. I couldn't tell you why. But the British also suck at making up urban legends. Because I don't know if you've noticed or not, but some of the weakest stories have been from the British. Like, you guys gotta step up your urban legend game. I mean, come on. Come up with something cool. The Gozu is a Japanese urban legend of a story that's said to be so terrifying that if you read or hear it, you'll die. Because of this, the story was broken up and scattered, so you can only read segments of it that won't kill you but will hurt you. From everything I found, Gozu has something to do with ox heads, cow heads. A cow was related to the story somehow, but everything was super vague about it, and I feel like that's just kind of part of the story. Now, Gateway of the Mind is a super popular creepypasta that I can very quickly summarize. The scientists believe that if a human is devoid of all senses, they can make contact with God. So the scientists take a blind deaf man who volunteers to test the theory, remove the rest of his senses, and begin to study him. Over time, he begins to go crazy. He won't eat, acts erratic, and even shouts very specific personal information about the scientist that he shouldn't know, mostly pertaining to dead loved ones and just like private, personal childhood information. Because of this, most of the scientists eventually leave the project. However, it's, those that stay on do find out the man eventually does meet God, and all this old man has to say is, "I have met God. He has abandoned us." And that's it. It's short, it's sweet, it's God, it still gets me to this day. I've known about the story for well over 10 years now, and it still makes my skin crawl a little bit. Evil Farming Game is a bit of a wild ride. It first started on Reddit as a user went to the tip of my joystick asking if anyone remembered this farming game. It was described as being similar to Stardew Valley, or those farming games like that. It was described as being similar to Stardew Valley, but with a twist that you kill your wife, and the game it's your standard farm game, but you also have to hide her body from the police and the locals. Now, this sparked a lot of interest and a massive manhunt. People really wanted this game, and a few other people said, yeah, I remember this game. I have it on this hard drive. Wang has a really good 3-part series going over the hunt for this game. Other people thought it was a game called Moira, but that wasn't it. And this was, a huge thing everyone wanted to find until it was discovered that the game never existed. Eventually people found out that, it was just a bit from Vine Sauce, and OP would fall asleep watching Vine Sauce, which just kind of confirmed it, as it was something that Joel was talking about in a video. However, some good did come from this all. Unfortunately, I wouldn't call it a hoax. It was more just, it's just something that just ended up not being real, and unfortunately, which does suck. But some good did come from this, as the demand for this kind of game was so high and so many people wanted to play this game because it sounded interesting, that it actually is in development right now, and you can wishlist it on Steam. If you want more information on this story and a more cohesive, in-depth look into it, like I said, Wang has a 3-part video series going over the evil farming game Hunt. So there's a lot of weird things about Denver International Airport. I'm just going to tell you to look into it for yourself. There's stuff about the weird horse statue, the Masons are involved. There's really strange paintings in the hallways. To put simply, if the world ends by the New World Order, they're going to be operating out of the Denver International Airport, so we should probably carpet bomb it now. Hugging Molly is a legend from Abbeville, Alabama, that parents would tell their kids to keep them from staying out late. The legend goes, Molly is a 7-foot-tall woman who wears all blacks and roams the streets at night. If she catches you, she will charge you, hug you very tightly, and scream in your ear before disappearing into the darkness. And that's it. She doesn't kill you, she doesn't steal anything, she doesn't do anything malicious to you. She just hugs and yells. And if that isn't just a goth Dommy Mommy legend, I don't know what is, but goth Dommy Mommy legend is now a confirmed thing to exist. Gloomy Sunday, also known as the Hungarian Suicide Song, is a song first released in 1933 that supposedly has a lot of death linked to it. The song has been attributed to at least 100 suicides in both Hungary and the United States, but no one bothers to take into account that poverty and famine in both countries were a huge thing at the time. Most of the legend boils down to exaggerating the numbers of deaths and saying if you listen to the song, you will just end up taking your own life, because it is a really depressing song. It's just sad sounding. Hell, it was even banned by the BBC during World War II because it was considered too depressing, and wasn't unbanned until the 90s. Killing praying mantis is the weirdest thing I have ever heard of. Someone, parents telling their kids. It started back in the 50s, and I can't for the life of me begin to think of why people would say killing praying mantis is illegal, but for some reason parents told their kids this. If you were told this legend, please explain to me why it's illegal to kill a praying mantis. It's not, but I want to know why people were told that that was a thing. So the toilet seat spider is one of the first internet hoaxes. The tale goes that there's a toxic spider at an airport bathroom that bites people on the butt and is super toxic. Just a fun way to scare your friends that are already scared of airports. Don't Look Envelopes is another tale parents would tell that I was never told. There's two versions of the story. One being a woman worked at an envelope factory and they found dead rats in the empty glue tank for, basically the glue they would put on the envelopes. Once they finished up a tank, they found dead rats in it, so don't lick it because dead rat glue. The other being that a woman licked an envelope that had a cockroach egg on it and the roach was born in her tongue. This one's just kind of weird. The only thing I can think is parents would tell their kids this so that they, didn't just seal all their envelopes. Are you not supposed to look in envelopes? If so, that's news to me. Area 51 is a secret U.S. military test site where they hold everything from UFOs to the cure, and aliens. They got the cure for cancer there, the Ark of the Lost Covenant, Sex 2 is there, which we're going to talk about later. If you think of it, it's in Area 51, okay? And if you can think of a conspiracy theory related to the U.S. government, you could somehow find a way to connect it back to Area 51. The government does do some secret testing there. No one knows exactly what. I guarantee you, it's just military weapons, mostly aircraft. They take what they do there very seriously, and it wasn't even acknowledged until like 1995. That didn't stop everyone from thinking, well, we just charge it, like they can't stop all of us, we're gonna see them aliens. Also, the moon landing was filmed there, if you believe in the moon. Tales Doll is a video game creepypasta about the long-forgotten game Sonic R, which is now only relevant because of this creepypasta. The original story and where it was posted has been lost to time, believe it or not. The original Tales Doll creepypasta is lost media. But most accept that the oldest is the Tales Doll Curse. A lot of the versions of the story I did read, however, follow the line of if you look into a mirror in a dark room, play some songs from Sonic in reverse, the doll will appear and get you. There's also one about like this dude finding a weird Tales doll plush doll that's like evil and demonic. How and why someone decided to turn this into a creepypasta, I don't know, but I get it. It's a kind of creepy looking thing. I mean, I remember seeing the stories when I was younger and thinking like it was fake, like Tales Doll is not a real thing. And then I actually played Sonic R through like an emulation, like one of those like Sonic Genesis collection discs that they used to sell. And I can proudly say that I didn't sleep for 2 days after finding out it was really in the game. Yeah. I think I also saw like a chainmail thing. It was like, oh, if you don't spread this, the Tales doll is going to come to your house and eat you. Atlantis is the fabled lost city that sank into the ocean. It was said to be like one of the most advanced places, and the survivors became the sea people. And Atlantis is the only thing that boys really want. Herobrine is one of the oldest gaming creepypastas that somehow remain relevant after all these years. Herobrine is an entity thought to be in Minecraft way back in the early days of the game. He was said to be a very rare mob spawn that looks like a default Steve but with no eyes, and he just sits there barely inside the render distance doing something. The first post talking about Herobrine was made on 4chan back in 2010. It came with some screenshots, and OP was talking about how he saw this mob and how it would do strange things like build sand pyramids underwater, remove leaves from trees, just make straight 2x2 tunnels in mountains, just odd stuff like that. The OP would also go on to talk about how they tried going on to different Minecraft forums and to try to talk about Herobrine, but the posts were quickly deleted, and it eventually resulted in him getting a message from an account called Herobrine telling him to stop posting about it. Since then, I mean, the character has become a major part of the Minecraft community, for better or for worse. Mojang even got involved and was including removed Herobrine into patch notes. There's also a whole part of the story about how Notch, his dead brother, is the ghost of Herobrine, or yeah, his ghost is Herobrine. That part of the story is dumb, but I think the reason why Herobrine did resonate so much and people thought it was really cool was because the idea of a super rare mob that looks like a player spawning into the world was just such a cool idea. It was unique, it was new, it was fun. The Mandela Effect is a strange phenomenon that's relatively new. It's the idea that people remember things slightly different. It's like Bernstein Bears and Bernstein Bears. Did Mr. Monopoly have a monocle? The spelling of Looney Tunes, and then the Sinbad Shazam thing, that was mentioned earlier. The term gets its name from the South African president Nelson Mandela, who was arrested in 1967, with many believing that he had died in prison. But lo and behold, Mandela was alive and well and freed in prison in 1990. I guess it didn't get a lot of news coverage, because I remember he was elected president of South Africa in, I believe it was 2004, sometime in the 2000s. And a lot of people, that was the shock of it. It was like, wait, no, I thought he died. That wasn't the case though. Nelson Mandela did not die in prison, and he became president of South Africa. Okay, I gotta tiptoe around this next one because I don't know if YouTube still likes to delete videos that talk about this. This one involves that creepy bird lady thing that would text you on WhatsApp and do challenges. It was a hoax that was spread back in 2018. It scared kids mostly. It was a weird-ass bird creature that would encourage kids to do dangerous acts to themselves and others, and it would usually end in like saying take their own lives. Very similar to the blue whale challenge. You know the one I'm talking about? This was a pretty big deal, alright? I'm not talking like just YouTubers were talking about it. I'm talking like major news networks like Fox, CNN, MSNBC, NPR. They were talking about it. The French State Department opened an investigation into it. Pakistan passed laws making the game illegal and everything. Eventually, it was officially called a hoax and, you know, a moral panic. The moral panic probably didn't help it. If anything, it made the whole situation worse. To give you an idea, this starts with an M and ends with an O. Alright, so to top off tier 2, and for this video, because I've already been recording for about 2 hours now, so I'll probably get about an hour and a half long video here. Webdriver Torso is a YouTube channel that for the longest time no one knew the point of. The channel would put up short videos, usually around 11 seconds long, that consisted of blue and red squares and a beeping, and in the span of 3 years it had uploaded over 600,000 videos. People had all kinds of theories about this, from it was an ARG to aliens, AI, you name it. It was, you know, there was a theory for it. But it was a lot simpler than that. The channel was made by YouTube as an audio and visual test. Or is it? It is, because YouTube has like posted a few shit posts on it.
Wow, you actually made it to the end. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Just like I had to quickly record an opening for this, I also had to quickly record an exit for it. If you really liked the video, hey, why not leave a like? It would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new. That would be really awesome too. I hope you're doing okay. The whole poll, or not poll, Q&A thing is going to be going on, well, after this video goes up now, because I got both parts of this entire video done, and then after that is going to be the part 3, and then 4, and then I don't know, I'll probably do something like in between so I don't get too burnt out on this too fast. Probably do a deeper dive in a few of these urban legends or something off of my list of stuff I want to talk about. We'll find out when we get there. But with that being said, I really appreciate you watching. Really appreciate you giving me your time and listening to me ramble. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you. I love you, and bye-bye.